Well, EPA gave a definite maybe to higher blends of ethanol in gasoline, possibly as early as next August. In a letter sent to ethanol trade group Growth Energy, the EPA says blends up to E15 may now be safe for vehicles once testing by DOE is finished. Clean Skies' Dan Goldstein is in our newsroom with more. So, Dan, is this the Christmas present the ethanol industry was hoping for?
Well, Susan, if it's a Christmas present, it's a Christmas present they can't open probably till next summer at the earliest, that is. Now, of course, getting E15, getting the blend from the current E10 blend was one of the industry's biggest priorities, and certainly they have achieved that, so it's a partial victory for them, even if it doesn't come exactly when they want it. Now, here's a little background. Growth Energy, which is headed by General Wesley Clark, former General Wesley Clark, earlier this year asked EPA for such a waiver, and that's something that they could do under the Clean Air Act. And here's what the EPA said. They said, quote, "Our engineering assessment to date indicates that the robust fuel engine emission control systems on newer vehicles will likely be able to accommodate higher ethanol blends such as E15. And that was signed by Gina McCarthy, who's the assistant administrator. So bottom line, Susan, they got a favorable ruling from the EPA, and that's exactly what they wanted and needed, since the ethanol industry basically is in need of a boost like this one. They say that getting to E15 will create about 6 billion gallons worth of demand for ethanol, anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 new jobs. Because right now, Susan, as you imagine, with the recession, 1/5 of ethanol capacity is offline right now, and obviously if they got that new demand, that would put a lot of those plants back online. Still, there's going to be a lot of concern. You'll hear about this from later from the auto industry, but there's also a lot of concern from farmers too. What happens when more of the corn could be used for fuel, and we could have a repeat of what we had last year. We had skyrocketing food and feed prices. But Tom Bias, who's a farmer himself, he's the co-chair of Growth Energy, says that's not likely to happen this time around.
Our nation's corn farmers have the capacity to overproduce. This year they're going to have the second largest crop on record on 5 million fewer acres. That campaign, the Food versus Fuel campaign, was designed by people who have a vested interest in getting commodity prices as low as possible so they can profit. It wasn't based on facts, Dan. In fact, last year, in the 2008 marketing year, we used more corn than ever for export, more corn than ever for ethanol production, more than enough corn for livestock feed, and at the end of the year we had a 1 billion bushel surplus. This year we're going to have an even bigger crop. I think people underestimate the productive capacity of American agriculture.
Now, you talked about, Susan, earlier how the Department of Energy is essentially taking over the testing for these vehicles. They are testing 19 vehicles with the E15 blend right now. They do have data on 2 of them, but the EPA said in their letter yesterday that the initial tests on 2 of those vehicles were encouraging, and they hope to have the rest of the vehicles completed with their testing in August of 2010. And obviously, that could put the EPA on track to basically put those higher blends in gasoline by next summer, Susan.
And what could all this do for cellulosic ethanol? Could that get a boost here?
Yeah, Susan, then that's one of the things that the ethanol industry is very, very excited about, because one of the things that they know they need is they need additional demand and additional market, and this really helps them basically attract investors back to the ethanol industry, which, as we've talked about, is struggling right now because of slack gasoline demand. They're just simply, we don't have the gasoline demand we had 2 or 3 years ago. We don't need to stretch our ethanol supplies or our gasoline supplies with ethanol as much as we did. So this is really going to be a shot in the arm, at least the ethanol industry sees, for the cellulosic part of the business.
All right, fascinating. Dan Goldstein, thank you.